Welcome to the show where we break down the mental health stigma, navigate sobriety with humor, and prove that it's okay to laugh while you heal. Let's get real, let's get honest, and maybe a little weird. Growth is messy, but you don't have to do it alone. This is Sober Psychology. Ladies and gentlemen, well, welcome back to another episode of Sober Psychology. I am your host, Michael. Thanks for tuning in again. You guys are awesome, rock stars. I appreciate y'all. If you've been following along, we jumped over to the TikTok world this past week, which has been crazy. I feel very old being in the TikTok world, but we're doing that, so you can check us out over there now too. Today, we're going to go over outgrowing others. We're going to go over outgrowing relationships, outgrowing people, outgrowing situations, whatever it may be, but we're going to talk about outgrowing others. This kind of goes in conjunction with setting boundaries, which we did 2 episodes ago. This is just, again, this platform is all about the reality of just growing as human beings, right? Constantly moving forward, evolving, getting better, whatever it may be. But before we get into it, I need to issue an apology. I need to issue a very serious and heartfelt apology. Last episode, I let some cuss words fly, and my niece decided to FaceTime me and let me know that I said some dirty words. The reality is, if you look at our podcast, it does say explicit on it, because we do tend to fly off the handle every now and then and say some things that probably aren't appropriate for younger children. However, I told my niece that I would give her a genuine apology. So, Miss Caroline, I am so sorry that I said bad words. I am so sorry that Uncle Michael decided to use those words. I'll try to do better, but you are more than welcome to tell me when I don't do better, okay? But I am sorry. Get closer. I love you, and I'm very sorry. All right. Again, thank you all for tuning in. We're going to talk about outgrowing people, outgrowing others. Throughout the entirety of this episode, try and think of like a relationship like, I don't know, like a pair of shoes or something, right? You've got, they serve their purpose. They got you from point A to point B, but then sometimes you're just going to outgrow the pair of shoes, or it's just getting worn out. It's not benefiting you like it used to anymore. And I don't want to seem insensitive when I say that, but I want you to wrap your mind around the fact that you should not feel guilty for outgrowing people. That's a very natural human element. It's human evolution. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But we're going to talk about why it happens. Why do we outgrow people? We're going to talk about how to recognize it, and then we're going to talk about how to handle it. And for the why we outgrow people, I really broke it down in a very psychological way. I've got some charts up here and some notes, and you can look all this stuff up. This is legit. This is the product of me learning all this psychology stuff. So I apologize if it bores you. But I think if you would just look into it, it's very helpful. It helps kind of break everything down so you can see it in a different perspective. Okay, so jumping right into it, why do we outgrow people? Here are the psychological basis facts for that. So if you look at Erik Erikson's psychosocial stages, basically what he decided in the 50s was that each human being, from the time that you're born to the time that you're 65 years and older, you go through 8 different stages of life. And those stages are infancy, early childhood, your play age years, the school age years, adolescence, early adulthood, middle ages, and then old age. And the way that he broke it down was that in each one of those stages, you deal with a conflict, right? And that conflict then will give you a virtue. And when you complete that stage, you take that virtue with you. You move on to the next stage, basically. And that's going to help you as far as dealing with crises in your life. It's going to help you developing a good character, a good personality later on, okay? There are definitely those of us, I have been in this as well, where the other side of that coin is you go through that stage of life and you never fully worked through that conflict. And so you don't gain that virtue. And then you go through the rest of your life continuing to move on, because your age doesn't stop until you're dead. But when you miss out on that virtue, that's where you start having personality problems. That's where you start having difficulty handling certain situations. So for instance, Erickson said that the infancy stage is from birth until you're about 1 year old. And the conflict that you deal with is trust and mistrust. And what you're dealing with in that is trying to find nutrients, right? Like you're bottle fed, or whether you're breastfed, you're looking for where your nutrients is coming from. And you learn in that 1 year time frame what you can and cannot trust as a source of nutrients. The virtue that you get from that is going to be hope. So as an infant growing into a child, I'm learning that, or I'm hoping that this that I'm going for is actually going to feed me. And if it doesn't, I now know that that's not going to be, I can't trust that as a source. So if you don't get that as an infant, as a baby, then you move on to the next one, which is early childhood, which is going to be your 1 to 3 year old. And you're going to miss out on that hope aspect. You have now a skewed view of trust, mistrust. So if you fast forward into that and you say, let's do early adulthood years, which is ages 19 to 29, you're going to deal with the conflict of intimacy and isolation. And this is where you're going to establish intimacy in relationships and relationships with other people. The virtue you get from that is love, right? You're recognizing the love. So this can be even from a parent. It doesn't have to be sexual. It's, you're getting this from a parent. You're getting this from a partner. You're getting it from friends, like I'm looking to be able to establish this close bond, and the love is the virtue I'm going to pull from that. But if you get your heart broken, if a parent rejects you, if there's a toxic parent that is abusive to you, well, then all of a sudden you go from seeking intimacy to seeking that isolation, right? And you may not get that love that you're looking for. Then we carry that on into our middle ages, 30 years to 64 years, and we don't have that love, right? And that's a difficult spot to be in. So I won't bore you with it. You can go and look at Erickson's psychosocial stages, but this is going to be a really good explainer for why we begin to outgrow people. We as human beings, we develop in stages, right? And then you have the role of changing values and priorities and life goals. Man, things move on, right? I'm in a big stage. I'm in a big transition stage of that right now. Especially if you backtrack 5 years ago, when I was just living for me, I was bouncing from relationship. I was only living for me. I didn't have my mindset on establishing a family, and I didn't have my mindset on being safe. I was just doing what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And then you get to where we're at now, and a couple of years back, I met my wife and let her know very early on, like, my goal for this is to establish a family. And now here I am. I've have an 18-day-old child, and everything just shifted, right? So I'm in this new stage now. And for Erickson, I'm in this like middle age stage where my conflict is going to be generactivity and stagnation, which is just where I'm figuring out how I'm going to contribute to society and be part of a family. And so the care is going to be the virtue I take from that. But all that to say, we go through these stages, right? And everybody is going to just shift and change as you get older. When you're in high school, you're looking to hump anything that moves. You're looking to establish a relationship. You're looking to continue to try and grow in those ways physically. You're going through puberty, whatever it may be. And then you get into college and things change a little bit, but relationships become a little bit more serious. And now you're looking into a career and jobs. And so you're starting to shift and change. And if you have people in your life who are staying in the stage while you're moving on, that's going to be one of the reasons we begin to outgrow people. We're going to see how that plays out here in a second. If you're looking at more research on personal growth, there's neuroplasticity, which again, another that's a word for neurologist, but neuroplasticity is talking about how the brain basically adapts, right? And so I'll give you an actual definition. It's the brain's ability to change and adapt its structures and functions throughout life. Again, I'm going to try not to bore you here. I get way too jazzed up about this stuff, but neuroplasticity and how our brains begin to adapt over time. Your brain actually grows. It will reorganize the neural connections in response to certain experiences, such as like learning new skills, forming memories, or recovering from certain brain injuries. Your brain's also going to grow new neurons in certain regions of it. It's called neurogenesis. And so that's in response to like enriched environments or stimulating activities, whatever. And then you're going to have the strengthening and weakening of synapses. That happens too. All of this to say, you can go look at neuroplasticity all you want, but it's your brain actually will change over time. We are not made to just stay the same, right? And so if your brain is in the same developmental stages at 5 years, or from where you're at now to when you were 5 years old, there's going to be a medical condition associated with that. And that lack of brain development goes against what biology is going to do, which is your brain is going to constantly evolve and rotate and move on and create new neurons and changing the neurotransmitter activity and all this stuff. So this is another reason scientifically that I'm just trying to lay this out for you to let you know that outgrowing people, it's not just a feelings kind of thing. This is actual biology here. And this is something that we all go through. Okay. So look into Erik Erikson's stages, look into the neuroplasticity of it. And then if you want to get even deeper into it, which this is my boy right here, this is Maslow or Maslow, depending on who you ask, but there's the self-actualization part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you look at Maslow, I'm going to say Maslow because I like it. Get over it. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's broken down into 5 different segments. It's a pyramid, right? And the needs at the bottom are that's the biggest group. And that's where you're going to need your food, your air. Those are the physiological needs. I have to have these to survive. And what Maslow said is that unless I get those, until I've fulfilled those basic needs, I cannot move on to the next, right? So if I'm getting food, if I'm getting air, if I'm getting water, shelter, all the things that I need to survive, now I can move on to the safety and security, which is going to be health, employment, property, family, social ability, things like that. Then I can move on to the love and belonging, which is going to be friendship, family, intimacy, sense of connection. Then I'm going into the self-esteem, which is confidence, achievement, respect of others, the need to be a unique individual, and then the self-actualization, which is morality, creativity, spontaneity, acceptance, experience, purpose, meaning, inner potential, like all those things. Those can kind of interchange, the self-esteem, self-actualization, whatever. But basically what Maslow is saying is that the self-actualization part of it is where you're starting to really reflect on you. Right? What is my meaning? What is my inner potential? What am I trying to get to? Where am I going with all of this in life? When most of us get to that point, we end up reflecting on the relationships that we have currently in our lives. Some of them are not going to be good for us. Some of them are not going to be helpful. Some of them are not pushing us in the right direction. And so then you start to have that outgrowing of what we're talking about. So again, go into the psychological side of it. You can see biologically that we naturally will outgrow people. Then you can go into even deeper into the psychology of it. We've got the physiology, then we have the psychology, but all I'm trying to say is we outgrow people because we naturally grow. We grow as human beings. This is what we do. Okay. A good example of this is like friendships from high school versus friendships as an adult. I am someone who, I had some really good friendships in high school. I was at that stage, right? I didn't have any responsibilities. I was playing sports. I was going to school. I had my social life, and those friendships were great. And then all of a sudden, I moved into a different phase of life. Now, I'm not sitting here putting the blame on anybody. I was an asshole and I was very selfish with my life for a long time after high school, but I did move on, right? I'm not telling you that you can't like maintain relationships from high school. That's the dream, right? Like if you get with a group of people who grow in the same way the whole time, that's a beautiful thing, right? There are people who have had friendships since they were in childhood. And that is very special. But if you go and actually reflect on it, both of you were growing in the same direction. And that's important. And you're hitting the same stages relatively close within the range of one another. Where you end up having a hard time, like most of you have seen in movies or experienced in your own lives, is let's say that you go straight from college, you're in a relationship that you found someone while you're in college, you get your career, you get married, you have babies, whereas your friends in college, they just are still in that party life, right? All of a sudden, you're naturally outgrowing them, okay? And that's because you probably got to the self-actualization part of that pyramid quicker than they did. Not saying they can't get to it, it's just you got there in a different route quicker. They're still wanting to party. They're still wanting to live the single life. You're now married, you're established, you have kids. You aren't going to really see eye to eye in a lot of areas of life. You can still maintain friendships with them, but how close are you? You know, you're not going to be able to live day in and day out with them, right? So this is just telling you that the growth aspect is natural, okay? Don't feel bad about it. And then we've got the recognizing when you've outgrown someone. And this one can be kind of tough for sure. You can definitely get to a point where you can overthink. You can definitely get to a point where you second guess yourself, you know, like if you're going to outgrow somebody, do it, bow your chest and do it, you know, and it's tough. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid sometimes, but common signs of outgrowing someone, it's when you're feeling drained and not energized ever in those relationships. You're constantly walking on eggshells. You've got this avoiding authenticity kind of thing, and that's tough, right? Some people have a spiritual awakening. Some people have an emotional awakening, mental awakening, whatever it is. Some people develop quicker than others. I mean, scientifically, it's proven that women develop quicker than men, mentally at least. But there are just times where you're not going to see eye to eye in a relationship. You're going to form into this different type of human being. And if you're in a relationship, if you're in a friendship where you're constantly exhausted, you're constantly worn out, you feel like you can't be your authentic self, you have to be what they expect you to be, or be every time you go back to a relationship or a friendship, you're having to be the same person that you were in high school because that's how that friendship started. That's a problem, right? This is where we can start to recognize, like, maybe I've just outgrown this person, okay? And then if the relationship feels one-sided, if you're in a situation where you're the one who's calling all the time, you're the only one who's texting, you're the only one who's setting up times to hang out, that's a one-sided ordeal. And that may just be time for you to look at it and say, all right, we got to set some stuff up here. I've run into this since moving out to Midland too. Came out here and tried to get my life back on track, and it was tough because I found myself in a pattern of trying to maintain these relationships that meant a lot to me, but I was the only one putting in the effort. Now, I'm full transparency here. I've also been on the other side of that, where I've been the one that people call and try and reach out to, and I don't do a good job of keeping up with them. And it's because I didn't prioritize them right. I wasn't giving enough care and attention to that relationship and that person. And because I was selfish, because I was the one who was ignoring, then all of a sudden people stopped calling. And that's, you can't hold that against anybody. That's just a natural, when you constantly get rejected, why are you going to keep putting your hand on that hot stove, Then you have the practical examples of this, which is the shift from shared hobbies to diverging interests. This is a big one too. This is kind of what, again, I'm going to keep using becoming a new parent as an example, but so you go from, like, I had a group of friends that I would hunt and fish with a lot, right? And then all of a sudden they start having kids. Well, now our interests are kind of diverging here because I still want to go hunt and fish, but they're worried about taking care of their families, rightfully so. And so when that shift happens, again, that's a natural shift, but you all of a sudden, instead of having shared hobbies, you have these diverging interests. They have to prioritize things differently. I'm in that stage now too. And I'm very fortunate because, I've always typically had friends that were older than me. I always look up to people because I look so lowly of myself, but I love being around people who have been in stages of life that I'm going to go through, because you can learn so much from those people. And even if they haven't fully experienced it, their shift and their perspective, right? I'm not someone who believes that just because I just had a kid, I can't be friends with people who don't have kids. But I can't be close friends with people who are still going out partying and chastising me for getting married and moving on with my life. And, oh, you're just trying to be the old guy with kids. Your life's over. I'm like, no. If you're one of those people who is like, hey, congrats on having a kid. Like, I can't wait until I have one. I'm going to keep going in that direction. We're going to still be good friends, right? But if you have the party animal, you're not gonna be friends with the party animal when your focus is now, I'm gonna protect my family. I'm gonna help my kids grow. I'm gonna be there for my wife every step of the way. It's gonna be tough to have those diverging interests come together. Okay, and so that is definitely gonna be a part of the recognition that you've outgrown somebody. And then here's a big one too that not enough people talk about, but like the misaligned values. And maybe this is gonna step on some toes, but like, I'm a Christian and I've been outspoken about that. But the Bible talks about marrying someone with a shared faith, the same faith. It would be very difficult for me to marry somebody and to begin a family if I'm a Christian and they're an atheist. It would be very difficult, right? Because my system of morals and values comes from my relationship with God, but also the instruction manual that he gave me, which is the Bible, right? And that's where my foundation is built upon. And if you have someone who doesn't understand that, doesn't have it, and can't fully respect it, well, that's going to be a system of misaligned values. You can probably, I don't know, I haven't really fully experienced this because I haven't been very close with people who have done this, but like, let's say if you have someone who you're in college and you're really good friends and you both kind of stay out of the political game, but as you move on into college, you start adapting these conservative ideals and principles, but then your friend has these very liberal ideals and principles. That's going to be very tough. And it's very difficult to get to that point where you're like, hey, look, I love you, I care about you, but I'm tired of yelling at each other every time we make life choices. It doesn't have to be that way. And I'm a big proponent of, regardless of what you believe in and regardless of who you think you are, we can still be friends. How close can you actually be though? How close is that relationship? Because those misaligned interests and values are going to slowly start to skew that relationship just a little bit, right? And that's a pattern of recognizing, all right, maybe I've outgrown you a little bit. There's emotional impact that's going to come with this recognition that you're outgrowing people, right? It's gonna feel really difficult when you finally come to the realization that connection isn't what it used to be. And again, we talked about this in episode 9 with setting boundaries. It almost feels like a loss sometimes, right? When you set boundaries, when you have to move on from somebody, it feels like you're losing them, right? And that's a difficult spot to be in. You're not wrong for feeling that. It's just something that you have to learn to navigate. And this is where you go into normalizing the grief and the nostalgia that come with that change. I had so many people in my life where growing up, we went through so much. We went through so many stages of life that were outrageously influential and developmental and meant so much. And, one of my curses is that despite being a drunk, I have a difficult time forgetting things. I remember a lot of things. And I still have a hard time. I'll have memories, I'll have flashbacks, I'll have moments where I'm like, God, I miss that person. But I miss them because of the situation that we were in and what we were doing. And that's that's normalizing that nostalgia, right? That's going to be a natural thing. You go through stages of your life. I do this with my dad even. Dad's a menace and he's very, very, I can't have a healthy relationship with him and he's not going to come near my family being the kind of person that he is. But there are moments, there are very few, let me tell you, I could probably count them on one hand, but there are a few moments where I'm like, I miss that. I miss that moment. I miss that time. And you're going to naturally go through this when you're beginning to outgrow people, but there's grief that's going to come with it too. And I want to let you know that that's completely normal. That's natural. That is one of those things that you shouldn't feel bad about, right? Because you're going to naturally have grief. You're going to naturally tune into the nostalgia of it all. And this is where the second guessing comes into play. Like, should I actually set boundaries with them? Should I move on? When in all actuality, they're technically a dead weight holding you back from the growth that you need to experience. So how do we handle the outgrowing of people? Okay, here are some strategies for navigating the shift. You can do it gradually, right? And that's where you start creating distance without the guilt. Do it at your pace, okay? I'm not going to be able to call you 3 times a week. Maybe it's once a week, and then it's going to become once every other week, and then it's going to once a month, and there's just going to be a gradual change. And typically when you gradually change like that without any extreme conflict or whatnot, both of you naturally begin to grow. without one another. And that's, I don't know if that's the ideal way, but that ends up being like the smoothest transition into it, right? And then you can do the route of setting boundaries. This is the more aggressive approach, if you will. I'm not saying that in a negative way, but hey, something's got to change. We can't keep this up. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and let you know, I can't come out with you every weekend. I have a newborn and I'm not going to leave my wife at the house every night. I can't come out with you every weekend to go watch the game, go to the bars. You can't come over every other day. Like, I'm moving on with my life. And so I need to set this boundary. Like, hey, once a week we're hanging out. Okay. Maybe once a week, like something like that. But you have to do it in a way where it's respectful and kind. And we talked about this in the episode of setting boundaries. It cannot be done out of malice. It cannot be done out of resentment, hate, whatever. Go at it, pray through it, think about it, reflect on it before you set those boundaries. Know exactly what you need to do, but don't shy away when you set those. This is going to be tough when you're setting boundaries with a close friend. I need to set these boundaries and I need to do it for me. Okay. Don't shy away from that. It's probably going to hurt their feelings. You're not trying to do that though. If you go into it trying to hurt their feelings or accepting that I don't care about your feelings, that's where you're probably going to have a difficult time. So when and how do we have that conversation? That's going to be one that really just depends situation to situation, and depending on how your relationship is with another person, right? But you have to frame that discussion around growth and mutual respect. I respect the hell out of this person. Oh, that said another cuss word. I'm sorry, Caroline. I'm sorry. But you're going to have that respect for that person going into the conversation. And it has to be focused around your growth too, right? So again, I'm not going to buck. I'm not going to cry and whine about this. I'm just going to let you know that I need to grow from this. I need to move on. Okay. So an example of that is I wrote this down. I value our time together, but I feel like we're in different places. That's plain and simple. Just there it is. I value you. I value our time together. I care deeply for you, but we're in different places right now. And it's really difficult for me to continue going back to a different place in order to maintain a relationship with you. And you can even be honest with them. Like, I've done this before with moving on with people. Like, I feel like you need more out of a friendship than I can offer you right now. And that's just honest. And that's, not trying to be the martyr here. But putting it on me of like, I recognize that I cannot give you the level of friendship that you need from me in order to justify staying in a friendship with you. Okay. Therefore we need to outgrow each other, begin that process. And then there's the self-care aspect of all of this. This is a big way of how to handle outgrowing people. And I know, look, I'm a male, I'm from the South, and I get so sick and tired of all of these dudes coming out of the web works. Well, we don't have to talk about our feelings. My daddy, my granddaddy. Okay, shut up. I don't care. Like, how are y'all doing? How's everybody doing that just kept their feelings in forever? Some of you are okay, and I get it, and you can maintain that for a while. I did that for a long time until it just burst out, and then I started mowing everybody down around me. This isn't like the little lovey-dovey Care Bear kind of stuff. This is just real. Like, start doing the self-care routines that you need to do during any type of transition in your life. You can lean on a support system, which is finding other people in your life who are going to hold you accountable. You can go to therapy. You can do those things that you need to do to be able to communicate with somebody. Don't just hold it all in and act like it's going to go away. It's like trash, man. Every time you throw something away, you can't just pretend it disappeared. At some point, you got to bag it up and toss it. Like, it's got to go, or else that trash is going to sit there and stink. And that's just reality for you. And then we talked about this in the last episode, in the victim mentality, but then also setting boundaries. But this is an underlying theme in all of these. It's the journaling, the self-reflection, whatever you need to do to get to the point where you can look at your personal growth. I said this last episode too. It doesn't have to be sitting down and writing in a journal. It could be just recording little videos on your phone. Save them for yourself. Go back and look at them. That way you can record a video, and then in 3 months, you can see how much you've grown from that person who is recording that video. But get to this point where you're able to just reflect. Okay. Talk it out to yourself. If you don't want to go talk to anybody else, you want to be a big, bad, macho mamma jamma, okay. Hold it all in and see how that works. Or just talk to yourself. Talk to yourself. That's fine. You don't have to tell anybody that you talk to yourself. But get to the point where you're reflecting on who you actually are, what you're going through, everything that goes with it, right? So then we're going to get into now moving forward. How do we move forward from all of this? How do we get free from all of this? I've got some quick tips. You can see how that goes for you, but you could focus on the gratitude for the relationship, right? Just because you were moving on from someone does not mean that that relationship was bad. It does not mean that that person is bad. It just means that you grew. You outgrew each other, and that's fine. That naturally happens, okay? You can seek out connections that are going to align with your current self. So this can be support groups. This can be, just people that you naturally meet going through any type of transition. If you have a loved one that you lost and you get in with people that are grieving over lost loved ones, or people who have lost loved ones, things like that. So find people who are in transitional times. This, out here in the desert, out here in oil country, this happens a lot. There are a lot of families that move out here. They get transplanted. They get taken away from the life that they knew and the comfort of community and safety of the environment that they were in, and they come out here for a job. There's no community out here in Midland, Texas, and if there is, it's very tough to find. It's just a transitional time. Now, fortunately, you could find people who are going through that, but I'm just saying, find people who are going to align with your current self, okay? Another quick tip is to just give yourself permission. Let go and grow. All right. I know that sounds cheesy. I know that is an eye roll kind of stat there, but you can just give yourself permission. Like, it's all right. We talked about this again in the setting boundaries. When I did this with my family, when I've done this with other people recently, I've gotten to a point where I've just been like, all right, look, for me to grow, to be where I'm at now, I need to just let go of it. I need to let go of hanging on to that nostalgia and that grief and making myself feel guilty when I don't have to feel guilty. I'm loving my wife. I'm supporting my family. I'm doing everything that I can to move forward. And there we go. That's it. I don't have to apologize for that. So you don't either. Boom. And then here's a big one. Reframe the narrative. I need y'all to pause for a second. I need you to get close. Write this down. I wrote this down and I was really proud of it. Okay. Camera's not focusing. We'll go back out. All right. Outgrowing someone does not diminish the value they brought to your life. Here we go. Outgrowing someone does not diminish the value that they brought to your life. All right. We'll go over here and say it again. Outgrowing someone does not diminish the value that they brought to your life. Anybody else? We'll go to this camera now. Outgrowing someone does not diminish the value they brought to your life. Done. 3 different camera angles, one with a zoom. We said it. Don't get into the mindset that all is wasted because you moved on from somebody else. Don't get in the mindset of, I've wasted all this time and oh my gosh, stop with your self-pity. That person played a crucial role in your life. They meant something to you in your life. That's important. Hang on to that. Have gratitude for that. Be very grateful for the fact that they were in your life, that you got to experience that relationship and that growth. And outgrowing them does not mean that none of that happened. It did happen, but now you're at a new phase in life. You're at a new turning point, a new fork in the road where you can say, all right, I'm gonna go this way. They're gonna go that way. And that's okay, because I had that moment back there and all of that was good. So outgrowing someone does not diminish the value they brought to your life. It is as we talked about at the very beginning of this, it's a very natural and healthy part of human evolution to begin to outgrow somebody. It's natural, biologically, physiologically, psychosocially, whatever you want to say. It is all there. And that is a very crucial part of the human element, is to continue to move. You're going into a different phase. You're obtaining all of these different virtues. You're learning how to become a different phase of a human being. I've talked about this a lot with my wife too. The person that she married, I'm not going to be that same person in 10 years. I'm going to be a different human. There are going to be elements of me that will be the same, but I'm going to have grown, hopefully, right? Matthew McConaughey did an incredible acceptance speech when he won, I guess it was an Emmy, or the Oscar. And someone asked him who his hero was. And he said, my hero is who I am in 5 years. And then 5 years later, they ask him that same question. Well, who's your hero? My hero is who I'm going to be in 5 more years. Keep on going with that, right? Become the person that you want to become, and let that person be your hero, and let that be the version of yourself that you want to grow. All that to say, what I'm saying is we're going to keep growing, and that's okay. If you have moments of self-reflection where you're like, I'm the same person that I was 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago, that's not good. What that does is hold you. It keeps you in this state of stagnation. And I don't know if any of you have read the Bible, but one of the more violent acts, other than flipping the tables, that you see Jesus display is spitting out lukewarm water. Being stagnant is lukewarm. That's worse, in my opinion, than going the opposite way of crashing and burning. Because if you're crashing and burning, you're at least going to hit rock bottom a lot quicker than if you're just holding this complacent, stagnant approach, right? Everything else is moving past you while you're just staying right here. Everybody else is growing. All your kids are growing and moving along, and you're just staying right here. You're never evolving. You're never changing. Human evolution is the reason that we are still here. We have evolved. We've grown. We've shaped. We've reshaped. We've done all of these things. And if all you do is just stay here forever, it's never going to benefit you, right? So it's a natural and healthy part of the human evolution, okay? It's okay to grow. It's okay to move on. It's okay to love someone from a distance. It's okay to say, hey, I'm going to prioritize the things that I need to prioritize in order to become a better version of myself. And that's okay. All right. That's all I have for you guys. Next week, this is going to be a tough one. And next week is probably going to be very polarizing, at least for the community that has been built based on this podcast. But and I can't say it directly. I'm going to have to get permission from my niece before I can say this, but it's F your feelings. That's our next episode. So if you want to get into the nitty gritty of the whole feelings approach, we're gonna really go after it, and it's gonna be a tough one for me too, because I need to hear it, but also I don't need to say it in a very sensitive way. We need to just get after it. So F your feelings is gonna be next week's episode. You guys have helped me out more than you could imagine, and I love you for it. If you can continue to subscribe, to share the content, to like it, leave a review, I don't care, whatever it is, all of that helps me continue to move on with this in the appropriate ways, right? I'm still in school, going for the master's, and it would be great to be able to continue to do this in a capacity where I can give back a little bit more. So that's just my that's my call to action right there. Help me out. Much love. It'd be great. But thank you all for tuning in, as always. Please know that growth is not selfish, it's essential. Oh, that's a good one. Oh, come here, y'all get closer. Growth isn't selfish, it's essential. Write it down. That's off the noggin, by the way. Outgrowing someone doesn't diminish the value they brought to your life, and then growth is not selfish, it's essential. Man, this is fun. I love you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in week after week. Thank you for all the love and traction you're giving me on YouTube, on the shorts, on TikTok, on all of it. You guys are great. Again, as always, keep your head up, keep your heart open, go help somebody. We'll catch you next time.